Thanks, Rebecca, and good morning, everybody. I'm really sorry that I couldn't be with you in person this morning. Unfortunately, life events cropped up, which meant I needed to be elsewhere. But I didn't want to leave you all hanging. So I'm recording this earlier in the week so I can talk to you about how the new world of generative AI and the older world of psychology intermingle. Now, when Mike and Vivek asked if I'd like to share my thoughts on generative AI, I thought that the subject is both very geeky and very psychological, and that's the perfect Venn diagram for me. So where are we today with generative AI? Well, you might have guessed already that this isn't me at all. I didn't record this video. You're not watching the real me, and you're not listening to my real voice. This is my AI avatar, who I can get to say anything I like. Vote Trump for president. Climate change isn't real. We don't need financial advice. You see, I can make me say anything, and it looks kind of real. And in a year of elections, that's probably feeling quite scary. But I'm not here to talk to you about the scary side of generative AI. In fact, as I just said, I'm not here at all. So I'll instead hand over to the real me while I go back to dreaming of electric sheep.
Morning, everyone. Sorry about that. I thought it'd be a fun way to start. Or maybe a bit scary. I don't know. It depends on your view of that. So that took me about 30 minutes to create on a service called HeyGen. You can all go and do it and create your own avatar. And it's kind of cool, isn't it? I thought it was just a nice way to start. And that's what we're going to talk about, really. That's what I'd like to talk to you about. Generative AI, how psychology and understanding human behavior is going to be a really big part of anything if it's going to be successful, and especially how that's going to be merged into financial services. And inspired by the Oscars at the weekend, I thought I'll split my talk up into a 3-act structure, much like films do and books do, where I'm going to start off talking about the characters, where AI is now, generative AI, talk a little bit about psychology of that, and then start to look at that financial services aspect. And then move into Act 2, where I'm going to talk about this conflict. Basically, is AI going to get to the point where our jobs, our industry, should be worried about it or not? And then hopefully, Act 3, I'm going to give you a resolution to say, okay, what's the likely future going to be with AI in financial services? So where are we right now with generative AI? Now, I assume you probably all know about generative AI to a certain extent, but I don't quite know how much we all know. What you're seeing here is not real. This was created by Sora, which is an AI engine created by OpenAI, who own ChatGPT. And you can type a prompt in, and it will generate video for you. So no drone pilot, no drone took this. You simply typed in for this, create me a drone view of waves crashing against the rugged cliffs along Big Sur's Garray Point Beach. 3 minutes later, you've got this footage. Impressive. But you might be thinking, well, that's okay. Maybe AI for video generation is quite good at this sort of landscape, non-sentient type of work. What about when it's actual creatures? These puppies aren't real. They never existed. You simply typed into Sora, create me a litter of golden retriever puppies playing in the snow. Their heads pop out of the snow, covered in it. Now, I challenge you to say that doesn't look real. That is amazing, isn't it? But you might still just be holding on to the vestiges of dignity and saying, well, okay, it can do creatures and it can do landscapes. Humans, though, are a different kettle of fish, aren't they? Because we are, as humans, very good at spotting other humans and when things are or are not real. If any of you watched The Dial of Destiny, the last Indiana Jones film last year, you know that the first 15, 20 minutes or so are a de-aged Harrison Ford playing a young Indiana Jones. And it was good, it was entertaining. But you kind of spotted it wasn't that good. You kind of knew it was AI. So it was good enough. So are we ever going to get to the point when AI can actually replicate humans? We're there already. This is now, again, from Sora, from OpenAI, with the prompt of, create me extreme close-up of a grey-haired man with a beard in his 60s. He is deep in thought, pondering the history of the universe as he sits at a cafe in Paris. That's good, isn't it? I think really that I tell you what, I'll make a bet with you. The next Indiana Jones film, Indiana Jones 6, will have a young Harrison Ford all the way through the film, and yet Harrison Ford won't have stepped 1 foot onto a movie lot. It's that good, and it's only getting better. Because when you look at this and think, where were we, or where were they? I'm trying to include myself in this. Where were they 12 months ago? We had videos like this, which was actually seen as really impressive. Oh, look at that, that's Will Smith eating spaghetti. How good is AI going to be? And in 12 months, we've moved from that to the man in the Paris cafe. Now, that's video, and that's not financial services. It might be, you can probably think of applications for it. It might be that people pay more attention to their suitability report if it's actually read out to them by Ryan Gosling or Emma Stone. Could happen. But probably where you're thinking AI and generative AI is more on the text-based work, more on things like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and other services that are out there. ChatGPT probably being the biggest one. But if you think at the moment people are just hobbyists and keep tinkering with it, you'll be wrong. You can see here from Maggie Appleton, who's a developer and anthropologist, it's being used so much to the point that commenters and anthropologists are starting to say what's going to be online is going to be more synthetic within a year than it is human. That the internet is going to be more generated by AI than it is generated by humans within a year. And you probably suspected that already. If you looked at things on Facebook, you might find a post and click on it and go, this doesn't feel brilliant. It's probably AI generated. So we are definitely heading into a future where the borders between what is synthetic, what is simian, will be fuzzier than they ever has been. Now, I do find that really interesting. I am a geek, I would, but I'm also a psychologist. So I'm always very interested in the human reaction to such changes and such adaptations to the environment, and how those perceptions are going to influence either the adoption of such technology or the rejection or resistance to such technology. And I think that's going to be important to us in financial services if we're going to start accommodating AI into our products and services. Luckily, psychologists are already out there doing surveys. They're doing lots of work into what do people think GenAI is going to do to them. And this particular study created what they called a criticality map. And the criticality map asked people to say, okay, what is likely to happen and not likely to happen? And of that, what is valued by you and what is not valued by you? Now, as your eyes cast over the screen, you'll see probably things that you recognise, things that you've probably thought yourselves, maybe in your teams at work you've sort of considered. I'm just going to focus in on a couple. Let's start on the positive side. What's likely to happen, and this is people's feelings with AI, and it to be valued as well. Promoting innovation. And actually the paper, not just this one, lots of papers have come out and said people are actually rather positive about what AI can do for innovation. They're also rather positive about what it can take away from people. We've all got mundane parts of our job, and actually we think AI could take over that and do that better, so enable us to concentrate on the things that we're better at. That's a positivity side of AI. Let's look below the line. Not likely, but also not valued, you'll see is threaten my career. But on the other side, which is likely but not valued, is destroy jobs. Now hang on a sec, they sound a bit similar. It won't threaten my career, but it will destroy jobs. Now in psychology we call that the optimism bias. And I would urge you to go and watch videos by Professor Tali Sharot from UCL down the road, who talks about the optimism bias. But it's our sense that we, as an individual, will always be better off than the people around us. And it reminds me of the poem by First World War poet Wilfred Owen, who said every soldier marches out to war thinking the man next to them is going to die. That's kind of where we are with this. We think it won't threaten us, but it will destroy other people's jobs. And in the survey, there were definitely industries, there were definitely careers that people are already worried about what GenAI is going to do for them. And I think from the videos I showed you at the beginning, you can understand why. Now, while financial advisors, power planners, hedge fund managers, they're not on this list yet. I think they're certainly eyeing up GenAI at the moment, like it's a rival gang just edging into their district a little bit and just keeping an eye. And end of the day, we're all here thinking about GenAI and what it's going to do. So I think it is around the corner. But hang on. We're not in the same industry as the creative arts. That isn't what we do. Our customers and clients are not binge reading suitability reports at home. They're not eagerly awaiting the next box set from the FCA to look through that. That isn't what happens. They engage financial professionals to help them make a decision in an area where they are not an expert, they feel uncertain, and they feel it is complex. So that's different, isn't it? It's more akin, I think, to the world of health, where we go to see a healthcare professional because we want an expert opinion. And we want that from a doctor or another healthcare professional. Unfortunately, scary news is that large language models, and Mike will talk more about those, now rate higher than human doctors for bedside manner. And they can score better than 90% of lawyers on the bar. So we're getting to this point suddenly into a game of who's more human, the AI or us. So where does that leave us? Will GenAI be the golden goose of the financial services industry? Will it revolutionize how people go and manage their money and how they receive advice? Well, I think with great AI will come a lot of responsibility from the companies that are going to adopt it and put it into their services. It will definitely enable firms to create services which deal directly to customers, that strong AI side of it. And indeed, I imagine some engineering mindset companies are already thinking about it. You may be in here and you're working with your teams on how do we create an AI model that goes direct to customers. More likely, you're trying to build it into your services to help your teams do their jobs better. But large language models will definitely give the customers access to large data sets, allow them to search, filter investments without the need for an advisor. And it will continually rebalance their portfolios if they wanted to. My question as a psychologist is, one, will it take our roles then? Because that sounds like it's coming. As a psychologist, I said, I always go to that question underneath of, will clients accept the new technology if people actually go and create it? Because being technologically possible is not the same as being psychologically acceptable. That's different. So what makes people either accept or reject any new technology, of which GenAI will be one of them? Well, psychologists have been studying this for decades. We've had lots and lots of opportunities to look how technologies entered into people's lives and their reactions to it. Way back in the 80s, when computers were brought into the workforce and people were very resistant to giving up the typewriter and adopting technology. How checks were used. If you're as old as me, you might remember that actually, well, you don't remember me doing it, but I went to my student union bar at university and paid for half a Guinness with a cheque. That's kind of where we were, and we're not there anymore. And even in supermarkets. You know, and you've seen probably the manned tills are getting fewer and fewer, and actually the automated self-checkouts are getting more and more. And our world has changed. We now all use computers. In fact, we've all got supercomputers in our pockets. We don't use checks. Checks moved on to cards, to chip and pin, to contactless, and from contactless into virtual wallets now, and we're using them more and more. And not only are self-checkouts probably the most common sight inside of any supermarket now, we're getting new ones which are totally humanless, and you don't even need to go to a checkout. You can just go in and walk out, and it'll work out what you've done and bill you automatically. So people do adopt technology, even if they resist it at the beginning. And in psychology, there are a lot of models that actually start to explain this. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to give you one. And I'm selfishly giving you this one because it's one we created at Behaviour, because it is a synthesis of over a dozen different psychological models. But unlike psychological models where you don't quite know which one to use, it puts it into an order that communications teams, teams creating products, teams creating services, can actually start to use. And it's modelled around a relay, where there's 5 legs of the relay, and customers start in pre-contemplation, in the blue, and they move around. And the idea is you can pinpoint where your customer is, and then what psychological mechanisms that you need to put in place in order for them to move from one section to the next section forward. And it's based on these 5 sections, which is actually called the trans-theoretical model of behaviour change. It's used, and it's a very well-regarded model to help people overcome addiction and change behaviour. And it just states that people start out in this pre-contemplation stage, not thinking about adopting any new technology, so you first need to make them aware of it. They then, if they're aware, can start contemplating it. Is it going to make my life better? If they form the intention then to actually start to use it, they'll move into this tricky preparation phase. And the preparation phase is all about, often people form the intention to do something, but never actually go ahead and do it. For give an example, we worked with a lot of clients who came to us and said, we've got people booking advice sessions with our advisors, but then not turning up. What can we do about that? And we said, actually, people have formed the intention to seek advice because they've booked a meeting. But in that time, between booking and going to see the advisor, suddenly uncertainty creeps in. What are they going to ask me? Do I need to bring anything? Am I going to be judged by somebody who's an expert in this area and I am not? And this worry starts to make people go, okay, maybe I'm not quite ready yet. I'm going to move away. So the preparation phase is all about dealing with that. Then you can get people to the action, whether that action is going to see an advisor, whether it is joining an investment hub, whether it's taking out an ISA, whether it's putting money into the investment after they start about it. These are all actions. Doesn't end there though, because once somebody does something, you want to make sure that they maintained that behaviour. You want to reinforce that positive behaviour as something which was really good, and they self-identify as somebody who has taken a really positive action in their life, even if that action is outsourcing to a third party like a financial advisor. That's still a decision. I'm not going to go through all of it, but the idea is that these mechanisms around the outside tell teams what you have to put in front of that customer at that point in order for them to move on. But the one area I am going to look at is this contemplation area. That is, people are aware that something has been released or something is new or a service or product can be offered to them. But they're not quite sure yet whether they should. Now, interestingly, research shows there is only 4 things people need to know to have enough confidence to go ahead and start new technology. And they are, I think, the obvious one to start with. Will it solve a problem that I'm experiencing? Will it help me feel like I'm making progress in this sort of thing? I think we're very good at that in financial services. It's that utilitarian point of view. Will it actually help that person? The problem we have is that we rely on that bit a little bit too much. We think that's all people need. If we tell them that they're going to benefit and it will lead to a better outcome, then surely they will use it. No, they won't. They need lots of other things as well. One of the most important things is, how easy does it feel for us to use that thing? Will it take time for me to learn to use that thing? Will I need to exert any physical effort? Will I need to think about it and exert any mental effort? Will it cost me anything? How difficult is it actually to set it up before I can even get to the thing that I want? I mean, how many financial assistants have you seen or demoed or tried over the last 5 years, really, that promise this sort of nirvana of financial autopilot for people? And yet when you actually try and set it up, you have to manually, one by one, connect accounts to different accounts or go through that hell of 2-factor authentication all the time. It's too effortful. Even when there's a genuine need from the customer, if people see something as too much effort, they will often fall by the wayside and not go ahead and do it. So that ease of use is going to be really important. Another thing is, are other people using it? None of us like to be the first ones to try anything new, especially in an area where it's uncertain and we feel something's complex. We like to see others doing it as well. The herd mentality, I think, gets a bad rap. We think it is a negative thing. Actually, it served us very well over evolution and in our lives, that actually it's a really good rule of thumb to stand by. That's why we see such things and we hold such high standards for customer reviews and connections to TrustNet and things like that. Talking of trust, trust is the last of the four things that are in here. Do we trust who's providing us with this new service or any service at all? If it's generative AI, do we really trust the output of something which is automatic, which hasn't been created by the human mind? Have we actually heard stories that maybe generative AI makes mistakes, makes hallucinations, as the press says? And I think we all have. And embedded in this trust aspect is perceived consequences. We balance it with what's the consequence of it going wrong? If it's low consequence, then maybe it's not so much bother. So to give an example, imagine it's Friday evening. You're going to treat yourself to a pizza. It's Friday, after all. So you go online to your favourite pizza delivery firm, you order your pizza. At the end of the online process, you hear this.
Hi, thanks for your order. I can confirm you've ordered 2 large vegetarian pizzas and a side of coleslaw. That comes to £32.50. Just press the button below to confirm and pay.
Just with a show of hands, who would be okay to press that button and get their pizzas on a Friday? Yeah, like most people in the room. Why wouldn't you? £32, what's the worst that can go wrong? You don't get your pizza and you lost £32? Not much. That's AI, by the way. I made her say that. I can make her say anything. What a different scenario. What if you went to a financial advisor, you met them, a week later you got an email, on the email was a link, and you clicked the link and you saw this.
Thanks for your instruction to transfer your pensions from Prudential and Scottish Widows to us. If you're happy, click the button below and we'll start the transfer totalling £650,000 to your new retirement account.
Who would be happy pressing the button? Ooh, couple, there's a couple. But yeah, you can see the consequences here are far higher, so therefore the trust is far lower. So these, have you noticed, have all got the word perceived in front of them. It's not so much the reality yet. People want to perceive and believe all of these things, and that's why it's important for anyone wanting to release generative AI to cover all of these behavioural mechanisms. Because remember, being technologically possible is not the same as being psychologically acceptable for people. So, I've just told you the secret, really. I've just told you how you can motivate people to accept anything that you're developing, how to put AI into things, and people will go ahead and do it, won't they? So are we all doomed? Generative AI will definitely give us the ability to cut out the middleman. That's what technology has always done. But one of the great myths, I think, perpetrated by economists more than anyone else, is that cutting out the middleman is more efficient, and that more efficiency is what people value. Now, Rory Sutherland, who's vice chair at Ogilvy UK, he puts it really nicely, and I've stolen this from him, and it's called the doorman fallacy. And the doorman fallacy is when you think about what a doorman does, it could be really easy to think, well, I can just replace them with an automatic door. Gets rid of the wage, gets rid of all those pension payments. Much easier, isn't it? But I think that makes the mistake of all the social skills that a doorman brings. They're the face of the hotel. It raises that feeling of luxury straight away if you see a door person outside. They do more than just open the door. They help people with their taxis. They bring luggage in. They keep the streets clean around the outside. So the whole perception of the hotel is increased simply by their presence of being there. I think if we just went on the efficiency side, we would lose something really important. That humans are, and we always will be, a very social species. And as we've seen already, trust is a very key factor for us when contemplating any new behaviour. And people value trust more through social contact. And they often value it more than the actual objective solution that they're getting. And when you realise this, I think you need to go back to basics then and ask such questions as, why do people visit a financial advisor in the first place? The rational answer would be really just to be told where to put their money for the greatest chance of it growing and the least chance of it losing money, or through tax and what have you. But is it true? Or is that just a rational answer that we tell ourselves because we're in this industry? Now, over my career, I've interviewed, it's hundreds, but it possibly goes up into the thousands now, at least 1,000, customers of financial service companies, both high street banks all the way up to wealth management firms, about what they do value about financial advice. And you probably won't be surprised to learn it isn't the advice, it's the advisor. And I'm going to stick my neck out and say, actually, people don't want financial advice. They want financial reassurance. And they want it from another human. One of my financial services clients last week was on the phone and we were chatting. She said, the greatest number of calls to their call centre is actually from people who've gone through an online advice journey, bought the advice and got the advice, but were phoning up because they wanted that reassurance from a human that what the computer had told them was accurate and right for them. And that's where AI falls short. It's on that reassurance side. So back to that big question of will it take our jobs? Now, I think if firms or individuals see themselves as mathematical, economic forecasters, or if individuals in companies who maybe look after platforms and passing data across from one platform for another, maybe it will, because that's what AI is going to be very good at and very efficient at. But those who see themselves more as people, those that acknowledge that their role is far more human than the financial advice they're actually giving, they're the ones that are not only going to survive, they will thrive, I think, in this new era. Remember the quote I mentioned at the beginning about how GenAI scores better than 90% of lawyers on the bar? Scary as that is, I do believe it can get scarier because I think GenAI will spread so far and it will do so convincingly that if you try and go head to head with it, you're doomed. So don't. I think when our future is going to contain so much synthesized content, as I mentioned how ChatGPT is heading at the moment, and it will contain so many automated services, including the ones in financial services, I think we're going to soon find ourselves in a reverse Turing test, where it's actually us that needs to prove we're human to other humans. And the only way we're going to pass this reverse Turing test is to be more human than we ever have been before. I think we're already seeing it as well. If you go to YouTube, go to Instagram, go to TikTok, you're seeing more and more financial experts and financial advisors putting themselves out there, being the face of financial advice. People like James Shack from Nova Wealth, people like Pete Matthew, Meaningful Money, Holly Buckeye from Boring Money, they're all starting to actually try and put themselves out there because they want to be more human and create that connection with customers and prospective customers. So I think the future is about achieving that perfect blend between AI's efficiency and humans' reassurance. It's kind of like this sort of buddy cop duo of the financial world. That's what we need to think of it, that any company adopting AI into their services has to do more than just adopt this cold, rational, calculating, efficient side. They need to remember that people want this warm, smiling, reassuring side of financial advice, because that is what makes us human. And just to finish, recently, angel investor Nick Milanovic questioned why has it happened over the last 5 years that so many financial firms, both in the UK and the US, have launched digital financial services, often looking very similar to each other and what everyone else is creating. Yet none of them have really changed the world. None of them have really adopted anything in particular. And these deeper problems that Nick's referring to are human. That lack of understanding of human behaviour and how to integrate that into technology so that they work together is the problem that nobody's really solved yet. And I think that could be the same for AI. So let's not get dazzled by the technology and end up in the same place in 5-10 years' time looking at wonder why people are not adopting this. Let's take the chance. Take the chance to be more human than ever before, because that's how we're going to be better. And that's what customers value more. They value it more than advice, and they value it more than efficiency. So I think, really, the threat of generative AI is going to give us the kick up the ass that we all needed. It's going to make us human, and it's going to be the ones that succeed who do. If you are interested in psychology and how people behave, here's my plug at the end, by the way. I'm releasing a book later this year called Behave, which is all about why information is not going to be enough if you want people to do something and adopt your products and services. You need more than that. And it goes through the model that I've introduced with you here today in far more detail. If you go to behavebook.com, I'll be so grateful if you just pop your email in. I'll just send you an email later in the year when it's out, and it's in Amazon, and it's in Waterstones and the various places.